2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brannon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
What is emotional abuse, and how do I know if I'm being abused? What's up, you guys? Welcome to the Therapy Brothers podcast. I'm Brannon.
I'm Tyler. We're brothers.
We're therapists.
We're not afraid of your questions.
So bring it.
All right, Brannon, this one's going to be a good one today. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm exhausted. Yeah. You kept me up late last night.
Brannon and I had a late night last night. We decided to get together for kind of an intensive planning session to see
work meeting.
Yeah, what some of our other projects are that we want to try to be doing, and it was pretty exhausting last night.
Yeah, I left it. So Tyler lives an hour and a half from me, and I left at like 11:15 last night. So got a little bit of sleep, but not much. So. Yeah.
It's always good to see your face in person, though.
Hey, with your new teeth, it's good to see you. Tyler's got these veneers, and his smile is like perfect.
Hey, I gotta give credit where credit's due. We got a cousin who had me down to his practice in Texas, and he really took care of me. So
he's the man. He's the best.
Yeah. So.
Well,
should we get into this, B?
Yeah, this is a serious topic. It's I think there's a lot to break down and a lot to discuss about it. So let's read the question. In their question is the review. So we kind of saved it for both. So go ahead, Tyler.
Okay, this one I think is one that a lot of people ask, and it's a kind of a hot topic. So it says, will you guys have a discussion in regards to emotional abuse? Some questions surrounding this would be, who defines what abuse is? I feel like the abuser most likely is never the one that feels there's any abuse going on, while the one being abused may be living in an abusive fog and can't see clearly what is going on in their life. Anything labeled as abuse is very sensitive and is not to be thrown around lightly. So how can one in an emotionally abusive relationship see clearly? What are some questions one can ask themselves to lend clarity to their situation? You guys are amazing. Keep up the great work. You're having a positive difference. You're making a positive difference out in the world, and your voices need to be heard.
Wow. Thank you for that, the kind words at the end there.
Yeah. Brannon, this is a good one, man. Like, we get this question all the time. I think in the world that we live in, it's constantly back and forth when we're dealing with things like trauma and betrayal trauma and even addiction. And even just the way couples interact with each other, just in their day-to-day communication, there really is often the language of someone being a victim and someone being an abuser used in all sorts of different kinds of context.
Right. And how do we differentiate between everything to say this is abuse or this is just bad behavior from one partner to another? Where is the line of abuse? One thing, Tyler, to go along with what you're saying, we work with addiction, and you and I both know that addiction is an attachment disorder. So what that means is somebody who's really steeped in an addiction and struggling does what they can to detach or attach to somebody in a healthy way or in an unhealthy way. And so if you're in a relationship with an addict, it's really confusing. There's a lot of manipulation, there's a lot of denial, there's a lot of gaslighting and those type of things going on. And that the person struggling with addiction is doing what they do because they're struggling with an attachment disorder. The partner, are they being emotionally abused? Would we deem that emotional abuse? Or is it that they're just married to somebody with an attachment disorder who's acting in their attachment disorder? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. And the question is can both of those things be true at the same time? And what do you do about it, and how do you handle it, regardless of how you define it?
Right. So I'm going to put you on the spot first. How do you define it?
Okay.
When does it cross the line into abuse?
All right. So I've got some information pulled up on my screen here, and I just want to go through it and just share some of the definition of what's typically considered emotional abuse. Okay. So we'll go through that, and then we can talk a little bit about some of our own experiences with it. Here's the definition of it. Emotional abuse is a way to control another person by using emotions to criticize, embarrass, shame, blame, or otherwise manipulate another person. And then it goes down and it basically gives some criteria here. This is what happens with emotionally abusive relationships. The abusive people display unrealistic expectations, meaning they make unreasonable demands. They expect you to put everything aside to meet their needs. They are clingy and demand all of your time be spent together. They're always going to be dissatisfied no matter what you do. Criticism, undermining or dismissing or distorting your perceptions, which we could call gaslighting sometimes. Refusing to accept your feelings, requiring you to explain how you feel over and over, accusing you of being too sensitive or crazy, refusing to acknowledge or accept your opinions, dismissing your requests, and creating chaos, starting arguments for the sake of arguing, making contradictory statements, mood changes, nitpicking, and then manipulating, humiliating, using your fears and values as hot buttons to control you or the situation.
Okay, so I want to just kind of play the devil's advocate a little bit here. If I have a mood change, am I being emotionally abusive?
That's the question. So here's the struggle is, according to the definitions, I think
where do those definitions come from?
Right. This one comes from Very Well Mind, and it comes from, where's this thing?
Because I think it's important to really look at who is defining. I think that me being volatile in my mood or in my emotions can definitely set up my partner to be in an emotionally abusive relationship. If I'm lovey-dovey happy, then yelling and angry and I'm swinging up and down like crazy, that definitely could be emotional abuse. But if I get a little bit hangry and I'm a little bit grumpy and I eat and then I'm happy, I don't think I'm being emotionally abusive to my partner. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. I think this is where the hot topic thing comes in with this, is that somehow we as human beings, we all have a little different perception, but I think a lot of us have this perception that if we get attached to the word abuse, that somehow makes us horrible, terrible, horrific people.
Right.
Right. if we were to look at the definition here, I could honestly say that I've abused my children probably many times.
And your wife?
And my wife. And she's
Right.
probably abused me. And my children have probably abused each other.
So we're all abusing each other. But so this is, I guess this is where it's so tricky, is because, working with domestic violence, that, and she said this in her question, you don't take abuse lightly. Like
Right.
it's when you define it, a lot of times somebody in a domestic violence situation or abusive relationship, they have a hard time getting themselves to the point of actually accepting that they're being abused. And so when they meet with a therapist, the therapist is like, let's call a spade a spade. This is abuse.
This is abuse.
Let's talk about this. But when, because according to the definition, what you just said, in many ways, we could say we all are abusive in our relationships. We're all abused and we all abuse. I think we got to be kind of cautious with that a little bit, in that to have a pretty clear indicator of abuse. And to me, Tyler, it has everything to do with force. It's when I'm taking the free will away from somebody. So I might be doing it through my manipulations. I might be doing it physically. I might be doing it
emotionally
through my aggression. Yeah. But my goal is to control and make them, feel things and do things. And in that sense, I'm abusing if I'm doing that. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm going to read this definition just the beginning again. Emotional abuse is a way to control another person by using emotions to criticize, embarrass, shame, blame, or otherwise manipulate another person. So
I would stop there with that definition, because I think going on to the other stuff actually minimizes what abuse really truly is.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to give you an example of something that came up in my practice a couple of weeks ago, and I want you to help walk through what we're trying to define here.
Okay.
So this is a couple that I've worked with for quite a long time. I really, really like both of them. And in our situation, we work a lot with, sexual addiction and infidelity, and then betrayal trauma. And this couple is one of those couples that I'm working with. And
but both of them, good hearts,
great
good people,
really, really good people. I love both of them deeply. He is the one who's had the struggles with infidelity and addiction, and she has been the one who's been in this relationship for a really long time. And the truth is that over the past several years, he has misled her. He's been dishonest with her. He has led her to feel a little bit like she's crazy because she finds things, but then he denies them. He's doing those things to protect himself, but at the end of the day, she's felt those things. Well, it came to a head a couple of months ago where she decided that it was time for her to get some space and try to clear her head. And so she decided to take a break and to leave him. And as she was getting ready to leave him, she packed up all her bags. She got the stuff in the car. He happened to show up at the house just as she was leaving the house. And he stood there and he didn't touch her, but he basically yelled at her, told her he was abandoning him, told her she didn't want to fight anymore. He then blocked the doorway and didn't want to let her through. Uh-huh. And what parts of all of this are what you would consider abuse?
Yeah, so I actually see it throughout. I think the lies and the manipulations, let's start there.
Okay.
I think that is emotional abuse in a relationship, is when a partner forces someone to stay in a relationship by manipulating them to stay. And that might be through omission, it might be through minimizing things, but when they're not an honest person in that relationship, what they're doing is they are putting their partner in harm's way, unbeknownst to them.
To the partner. And I think if you did that to a child, if I took a child and I knew they were in harm's way, I knew that their whole life could just get ruined and change in an instant
but I did it anyways. You'd look at me and say, what are you doing to that child? Why would you do that? Right? Yet in our relationships, that happens a lot. Right? So I think there's elements of emotional abuse to the dishonesty there. Right?
Okay. So with that, then what you just said is gonna kind of hit some people listening right now pretty hard. And this did hit this man in my group when this came up. We kind of had the exact same discussion, and he had been living his life trying to avoid losing her. It was all done out of fear. It was all done out of like insecurity. He couldn't wrap his head around the fact that the way he had been dishonest with her and misled her, that could be emotional abuse. And it kind of rocked his world when we concluded that was probably in the category of emotional abuse.
But Tyler, I think this is something to really understand is when somebody is abusive, their motive behind what they do is beside the point. So if I go and I do something horrible, let's use physical abuse because it's an obvious one. Let's say I hit somebody. And I'm like, well, I hit you because I had a really bad day at work and I was really tired, and hitting you was better than doing something else to you. And so that's why I did it. Does it take away the fact that I was abusive?
Of course not.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing applies here, right? Where he can say, I was protecting you and this is why I did it. But if you did those things out of fear, and he lied and he manipulated and forced her into the relationship that way, let's call a spade a spade. Yes.
So then, okay, so we can continue to break down the rest of the story, and then I want to come back to something else.
Okay. So all of the stuff about forcing her to stay, his anxious attachment showing up and freaking out and guilt tripping her and all that stuff, I mean, I don't know if we need to have much of a discussion on that, right? So that's more the obvious side of that's emotional abuse. That's force. Now, and it's even physical abuse. So think about it, Tyler. If he's not touching her, but he's standing in front of her car or standing in front of her and impeding her way, he's forcing her in a physical way to stay in a spot. Right. Yes. And so that to me is physical abuse along with the emotional abuse. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. Just by the nature of his proximity and even his body language.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so for this guy, like, he's probably a really good guy. Right. And abusers, when the abuse happens, a lot of times feel a ton of remorse. Mm-hmm. Like there's a ton of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I'm that's not who I am. And so they can have a good heart and have done a horrific thing, right?
Yes.
And it would be helpful for him to own that, hey, I don't want to get to that abusive place with my spouse again, right?
Right. He needs to see that that's actually what he's doing so that he can confront it. And yeah, you're right. This guy is a good guy. Like, and I know that people are listening right now going like, how can you put those two things in the same sentence? You just told that story. That guy's a total tool. And now you're calling him a good guy.
Right.
Like, so the next question is, okay, so if we can come to the point of how do we get to the point of at least accepting that the word abuse is in the equation? And then what do you do about it? Like, because someone who's hearing this and goes, oh, I've done those things before, they're not going to want to listen to the rest of this episode because they're like, oh, geez, I'm terrible. Like, is there hope? And how do you start to kind of move away from this?
The thing about it, Tyler, is it does take some shame resiliency. You know, if I did something abusive in my marriage, and let's say a therapist called me out, or my wife did, and it was like, wow, that is abuse. I'm going to need some shame resiliency in order to accept that and own that, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or I'll get defensive and I'll shame screen and I'll hide from it. But here's the thing, and tell me what you think about this. If we do come to terms with that this is abusive in our relationship, to me, what that is saying is this is something that does not work in our relationship. This is when the word abuse is put out there, that means boundaries have been broken and things need to shift and change. So it's not, okay, that's abusive. All right, let's just la-di-da, sweep that under the rug, pretend like it never happened, or continue to let it happen over and over and over again. When abuse is coming up, you need to say that I'm going to call it what it is. I'm going to see it for what it is, and we're going to address it. We're going to go to therapy. We're going to work on emotion regulation. We're going to work on communication. We're going to work on things so that we can handle things differently, so that does not happen anymore.
Right. So if someone's hearing this, the call to action is step in and get busy doing all the things that Brannon just said. Go get busy working on transparency and honesty and integrity and, emotional regulation and better communication skills, instead of shrinking away and continue to repeat the cycle that's already in place.
Yeah. I had a really good, hard conversation with my wife this morning, and it was emotional. There was things in it that were important for our relationship. That conversation could have gone all kinds of directions. We could have ended up really defensive. We could have ended up, throwing chairs across the room. We don't do that, but here's my point is you can take the hardest of the hard stuff in a relationship, and where the intimacy is really built is being able to do that work together, right? When you throw in control, you throw in force, then what that does is destroy the safety in the relationship and kill the intimacy. And so the skills to actually work through those things are what prevent you from getting yourself into that place of fear and control, right?
Yes. So it's about leaning yourself into accumulating those skills. And those skills are communication skills, emotion regulation skills, empathy skills.
Shame resiliency.
Being shame resilient is probably at the core of all of it.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I do want to address this, Tyler. And we've kind of been talking about what emotional abuse is. I do think there's a danger in over-labeling abuse in a relationship. And I know when I bring this up, it can trigger people, because if they've been abused, the last thing they want is to hear from a therapist that you shouldn't be calling something abuse, right?
Right, of course.
And so, yes, I'm very much a proponent of, if you've experienced abuse, we need to call a spade a spade. But if every time your spouse gives you a funny look, or just maybe talks in a tone that's a little bit frustrated, and you're thinking you're abusive, then all you're going to see in them is what monsters they are, what abusers they are, right? And so I think there needs to be some leeway in a relationship for a struggle with emotion regulation. Like I talk about, hangry, like I'm hungry and I'm tired, and so I'm not communicating very well right now. That doesn't mean I'm being emotionally abusive, right? And so, you're married to an imperfect person who's going to do some things that suck, and that's a reality in a relationship, right?
Yeah. Well, and you're going to sometimes be the person that does the things that suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody has a bad day or a bad moment. And what you're saying, Brannon, and I think this comes back to the question that's being asked is, how do I know the difference then? Because, I don't want to just go label everything as abuse, but I also don't want to be stuck forever in what actually might really be. So how do I see clearly, how do I know if I need to take care of myself differently?
Here's an example. Let's say I'm grumpy. I get home from work and I'm just tired and done with the day, and I'm grumpy. So I walk in and my wife's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Yeah, whatever. I'm going to my room." So I just kind of ignore her, don't acknowledge her much, and I go to my room. Is that abuse?
You're having a bad day.
Okay.
By the definition, somebody could say that, yes,
That
but I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's say I'm grumpy, I'm pissed off, I need a release. And so I go in to my wife who's smiling at me and she's like, "Yeah, how's your day?" And I was like, "Well, it kind of sucks because, you obviously don't care about me at all. And like you never want to have sex with me."
so, so there comes the power and control again.
Yeah, I'm starting in on something, aren't I?
You're starting in on a guilt trip that's trying to get you to be in control.
Let me guilt trip you. Let me use you in an unhealthy way. So I'm starting in on that. And if I follow through with that, and let's say I get her to just feel horrible about herself, so much so that she feels so guilty about it, she has to have sex with me.
Mm-hmm.
We got big problems going on.
Yeah, that's abusive.
Big problems going on, right?
Yeah, right.
As opposed to me being grumpy, going to my room, like dealing with it, my emotions, handling it, right? That's not abuse if I'm a little bit short with her. It is abuse when I'm trying to force her into doing something.
Coerce,
right?
Manipulate, guilt trip, something like that.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I want to kind of also mention that, from the side of the person who's wondering if there is abuse happening to them, you don't necessarily need to like. I think where some people get stuck is when they finally say, "Oh, I am being abused," they feel, on one hand, it's like validating. They go, oh, "Okay, this is what it is," and it feels good to give it a name. But on the other hand, that can't be the end result. It's if I'm recognizing
something
now
has to happen.
Yeah, these things are now happening to me. I need to step back into my own power. I need to step back into like protecting my values. And so whether or not, if you came home and you were crusty with your wife still should set some boundaries with that.
Sure.
And if you came home and then you were like trying to guilt trip her into having sex with you, she should definitely have some boundaries around that. So
sure.
So either way, she should still know that it's okay for her to maintain her own values. If I'm irritable with my wife, it's okay for my wife to say, "Geez, Ty, take a time out. Like, we're not talking."
But here, Tyler, here's where an abuser will really show his colors: is when the partner does step into their boundaries and maintains their values. An abuser can, especially an emotional abuser, can get really tricky and sophisticated in breaking down those truths and those values and those boundaries, and to the point of even acting like they're abused themselves in order to break it down. And so you're absolutely right. The partner gets healthy and grounded and has those boundaries no matter what. The abuser will start to push all the buttons, and it will start to really strain the relationship if the victim actually starts to hold their ground in self-protection, right?
Yes.
It's still the right thing to do.
It's still the right thing to do. We talk about it in my groups as the Coke machine, where, if you're the Coke machine and your person comes to you and pushes a Coke every day and it comes out every day and they get exactly what they want every day, and then all of a sudden you realize, you know what, like something's not right about this. The next time the person comes and pushes the button and the Coke doesn't come out, what happens?
They start shaking the machine.
They kind of push the button a few more times, and then they shake the machine, and they're kicking the machine, and then they're ticked off about it. And if you're trying to hold a boundary to make a different pattern, you have to be ready to know that the Coke machine is going to be shaken. And once it starts to shake, you have to hold on to that boundary until the shaking stops.
Yes.
Once the shaking stops, you can go back and reevaluate and say, did I do what felt right to me, or do I need to adjust it in the future? But once it starts shaking, you've got to hold the line, because if you don't hold the line, then what you do is you reinforce the abuse to continue, because it's like your 3-year-old in the store. We've all been there before, when you're walking through the store and you're at the checkout line and they see a package of gum at the checkout line. Like, "Dad, I want your package of gum." And you're like, "No, you can't have it today." I'm like, "But I really want it." You're like, "No, not today. We're not going to have it." And then what do? They amp up, they stomp their feet, they roll around, they start screaming and crying. Everyone's looking at you like you're a terrible parent. You don't know how to control your kid. and the burned out parent goes, okay, I'll just get the package of gum. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Like, what did that parent just do?
Well, it just set themselves up to have their kids freak out about the gum next time.
They're literally creating an abuser in the making.
But Tyler, we got to be careful, because I agree. But what sucks about that is it feels like then the onus is on the victim in order to say, don't abuse me. And the truth is that is true. You got to do what's in your control, but it's not your responsibility in any way to get your partner to not be that abusive person. It's their responsibility.
No, but it's your responsibility to take care of yourself.
Yeah, but I like I love your Coke machine analogy. When I talk about boundaries, I have two pictures, and there's one of a person laying down with a big doormat over him, and it just says welcome, and it's like, yeah, you can just stomp all over me, but then I have another picture of a person with like a bunch of bees all around him. You can't even see their face because the bees are just attacking. And it feels like if I go from being this doormat to actually being honest, then that's what's going to happen to me. I'd rather be the doormat and get walked on than deal with the constant stinging, attacking.
Sure.
And so it puts the victim of abuse in a between a rock and a hard place.
It really does.
But we know that it's better to actually face the stings and the bees for a while than it is to lay that doormat back over you. Because if you lay that doormat back over you, you're gonna kill yourself. You're sacrificing, whether you kill yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise, you're sacrificing yourself for that abuser to do their thing.
Your identity.
And that's what nobody wants, right?
The long-term price is so immense that I like the analogy that it would be better for the stings until it subsides, and it might even mean until the relationship breaks, if that's what's necessary.
Yeah.
Instead of staying in something for the rest of your life. With that, I think, how do you then manage that? If you're listening and going, okay, like, I think there might be some abusive stuff going on in my relationship. How do I get the intestinal fortitude to actually follow through on making some changes?
So I love that question. I love it because if you need it, then please listen and please set up these things. Don't stay stuck in abuse. Support. A good, healthy support system is critical for somebody in an abusive relationship. And you don't want people who just drive home that you're in an abusive relationship. You want people that support you to be empowered, support you to do what's in your control, support you to take accountability for those boundaries. Tools, communication skills, where you learn how to show up in your power and maintain that and communicate those things, right? And another thing, Tyler, that's really important is safety. So safety plans and safe places. So when I work with abuse, one of the first things that we do is we say, okay, before you go home and you say, I'm done with this, I'm out, because the abuser might very well amp up and really do some horrible things. So don't go home and do that. Let's make a safety plan first. Mm-hmm. Where can you go? Who can you talk to? Do you have some money available if you need it? Are you prepared to do what you need to do with some of your boundaries if you need to, right?
Right.
And know that you can say, here's my boundary, and now I'm going to execute this plan. I have a plan in place, right?
Right.
So
beautiful. Follow through on those things. I think one of the things you said most is that you want to build the right kind of team, and the team's not going to sit and just leave you in your victimness. They're going to be pushing you. They're going to providing the structure and the scaffolding as you start to try to step into your plans and your boundaries. And when they start to falter, you fall into that team, and that team says, no, you can do this.
But Tyler, a lot of people who are abused, they actually, if their team's really healthy, they'll start to push away from their team because the consequences of facing the abuse are so hard. If the if the therapist or the friend or the mom is like, hey, this is not okay. You set this boundary. This doesn't work. Have the courage to listen to that support rather than say, no, it's okay. It's not that big a deal. I don't want to call you anymore because you're going to call me on the carpet and make me be honest with myself. Call them and be honest with yourself. Right?
Yeah, right. And I think that's the last piece that I'd add to what you already mentioned, Brannon, is that in an ongoing way, you can still be working on yourself in terms of shame resiliency. Because the ultimate truth is that we allow ourselves to be treated right up to the level we believe we should be treated. And so if I can become more and more shame resilient, if I'm practicing my self-compassion, if I'm reaching out to healthy people, if I'm learning and educating myself and gaining a greater context to what's actually going on in my life, if I'm treating myself more and more as a human being, then I'm going to more and more want to be able to listen to those members of my team and put myself around people who are going to perpetuate my good health. And so the individual work from the inside out on shame resiliency is also, vitally important.
Tyler, just to kind of wrap this up, if you're in an abusive relationship, then things need to change. It's not okay. And there's abuse hotlines. Contact a good therapist who's going to support you. Go to Lovestrong and you can find therapists there. Go to therapyutah.org and we can set you up with people to help you and help you address some of these hard things and support you through the process of living in abuse is no way to live. And it's not good for the abuser. It's not good for you. It's not good for your kids. You're not protecting anybody by staying in a relationship like that.
Thanks, Brannon. Thank you guys for listening. If you know somebody who might benefit from this episode, please pass it along to them and get them the help that they need as well.
Awesome. See you guys.